Everybody, welcome to FinTech Fun Talks. Today we have a special guest, Chris Walcher. Chris, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Christy. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Chris is with Cedar Financial. And would you mind giving us a quick background on yourself, what brought you into the FinTech world, and so forth?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Chris Walcher. I'm the senior head of sales over at Cedar Financial. We are a third party, first party debt recovery firm. We operate nationally and globally. In fact, we're helping some of our clients and creditors recover delinquent funds across 170 countries. So it certainly keeps me on my toes. And
Yes.
kind of what drove me into the finance world was I was working selling life insurance of all things, and that was kind of like my intro into working in finance. And then I found an opportunity with Cedar Financial, and under the mentorship and guidance of our CEO, this gentleman Amir Rez, he really kind of supported me and guided me into kind of a trajectory of growth, which took me through skip tracing, debt collection, some administrative work, and then I found my slot in sales and really just kind of carried the football up into the position that I'm leading now. I've got several US agents. I've got agents in offshore call centers. I've got agents in nearshore call centers. And so definitely keeps me busy, but I love everything about it. Sprinkle in a little bit of that sales psychology, and it's a mixture for success for me. So there's a little background on what I'm up to.
That's great. I was wondering when you mentioned the many different countries that you do work in, how many of those you had your hands in. It sounds like quite a lot. So, needing to know and understand the nuances that and the differences in these countries too, and what makes people tick, I'm sure is a part of your day to day.
Oh, absolutely. No, and it especially it's essential in the accounts receivable management industry. I mean, look at the US alone, right? Some of the changes with HIPAA and the CFPB, like it's impossible for us to just stay ahead of the curve domestically. And so take that and expand it into the European Union and some of the changes that are going throughout like Asian Pacific countries or going into some of the African countries. It is really essential to know the rules and regulations, the lay of the land, if you're going to be successful, especially in that global demographic of trying to recover delinquent accounts. So you're spot on, Christy.
I imagine. I'm curious, do you mind sharing what are some of the most difficult or challenging things that you have come across?
So, for instance, in most of the Asian Pacific countries, in fact, a quote unquote debt collector has kind of been outlawed. And so they're using solicitors. That's what they call them, which is essentially a similar practice. But look at a country like Singapore, for instance. Their postal system is not as locked in and organized as what we experience in the US or throughout
Okay.
the European Union. So, like sending letters in the mail and those type of more traditional tactics, it just is kind of unheard of because you don't even know if you're spending money on that letter to get to a place that's actually received. And so some of those like really tiny nuances, they definitely change country to country. And so it keeps us on our toes and it really kind of adds to the excitement. It's fun to see what those, whether it's a cultural difference, a personality difference just in how they govern that corporate world of transaction, it's definitely like it changes every single day. And so, again, just to be successful, it's really important that we stay at the forefront of what those changes are, how we can incorporate and leverage to be able to continue to be successful.
Yeah, I can see where that would be really important. What do you do to make sure that you stay on top of all of these things across all of the geographies?
Yeah. So we're actually really lucky to have local boots on the ground offices across those 170 countries. So
Mm.
let's go to, say, Nigeria, for instance. It's not somebody in the US who's making a phone call to a delinquent account holder in Nigeria. It's my Nigerian local office. And so they're matching the language. They understand the commonalities of the norm. If you say, oh, we know that you're on Third Street, for instance. There's kind of that trigger point reference where any account holder, particularly if you're talking about a debt that originated in the United States, like a US company, for instance, and the customer is in Nigeria, a lot of times, commercial or consumer, you think, oh, they're in the US, they're in the UK, there's no way they'll find me. But then the phone rings or you get a text message from somebody who's actually a local entity. It just it just brings that debt a lot closer to the owing party. And especially with my local partners' understanding of those norms, it helps bridge more of like a genuine and sensitive approach. We're super amicable. I know that in the early 90s, debt collection was kind of clustered with really aggressive tactics, and that
Yeah.
was kind of the inception of like our CFPB. But through and through, I mean, we want to work with these account holders, whether it's working out a payment plan or filling out a financial hardship form, like just getting a valid understanding of what is the roadblock, was there a dispute, and supporting them to get this monkey off their back. Like we ultimately want to help these guys be able to put any of those outstanding balances in the past, and so that's kind of our approach.
I think that's really good because nobody wants that debt, right? No,
Really.
so I think having that friendly and more personal tone with them really would help to increase your revenue, increase your returns, and everything.
No, without question. I mean, our at Cedar Financial, our tagline is putting people first, and we really carry that through and through with the way that we build growth and partnership with our clients, and obviously down the line to how we're reaching out to some of those delinquent customers. So it really is important.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It is funny that you mentioned that the old reputation, I guess, that they had, it really kind of sticks. And so I think until people, maybe see something like this or they have an experience with a company like yours, they may not know that things have changed and that there is a better way.
No, definitely. And look, it's important to note that if you are ever in collections and you feel like you're a bad person or you're embarrassed, don't be. 100% don't be. Like,
Yeah.
look at the United States, and if you look at medical debt, for instance, like sometimes those are non-negotiable surgeries or emergencies where debt is just
Exactly.
incurred, right? Look at the student loan landscape. I mean, gosh, myself, I only just finished paying off my student loans, and that is referred to obviously as a form of debt. I was
Yeah.
working with a debt collection agency. And so it's really important to just understand that you're not a bad person. It happens to almost everybody. And really, what's been successful, particularly in the States, at kind of bridging that amicable approach and that really genuine style of dialogue is digital communications. Like in the
Mm.
States now, we can communicate through email, we can communicate through text message, or we can give you a consumer portal. So if you're embarrassed, you don't have to talk to anybody. You just
Yeah.
log in to the portal, you could set up a payment plan. And so I think that a large part of the putting people first is meeting people at their preference. Like
Yeah.
college students, you kidding? They don't want to pick up the phone. They live
No.
on the text message. And
Right.
so let's meet them where they live and let's really kind of establish a way to get them out of this on their channel medium that's within their preference, which I think is huge.
It is huge, and it's not something that every company thinks of, to be honest. A lot of them say, "No, if you want what I have or what I offer, you meet me on my level."
Equally, for a debt collection firm to have that amicable approach and try to meet consumers on their own preference of channel, some advice I would probably give to creditors that are extending lines of credit is you can operate with that same amicable viability and flexibility so that accounts don't have to roll over into a third party debt collection agency. Going back to that comment that you made, where some are like, no, you need to meet me on my page. I won't come to your page. It's just such an outdated level of thought. And unfortunately, we see tons of creditors that don't operate with that air of flexibility. Guess what that does? Puts a really bad taste in the owing balance account, right? And then that account is assigned to a third party debt collection agency. And just that whole river of the lineology of communication, what happened, whether it's valid, not valid, if there's a dispute. These guys on the owing side, they just have a bad taste in their mouth. And so, advice to creditors would be look at your AR schedule, look at your timeline, your DSO 30, 60, 90. And as you see those accounts that are getting a little bit more into the aged receivable side, be flexible. Be flexible. Work with your customers to the same extent that you want me and my team to work with your customers to get that thing resolved. So
Right.
that's what I'll say
Right.
on that.
I like that because if you have that flexibility, your chances of getting the money back are a lot higher. People
So
are just
much
in
higher.
desperate circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And being sensitive and understanding of that, like, look, especially say after the 2000s, the state of our economy is literally in a roller coaster where we're having a great year and stocks are up, but then now we're having a tanking year and we're seeing so many consumers that are struggling. The housing market is going up, cost of living is going up. And so all of these little components in that political economic landscape affect these individuals' ability to be able to repay anything outstanding. So it's all kind of just linked together. And a lot of times it's not their fault that they're in collections. It's not. And so if I know it's not my fault, it was something that had to happen, and I understand I'm responsible for the debt, the best that I could do from the other side is nurture that understanding and work with these guys. So,
Because ultimately it is a relationship, right? Whether it's
hands
your
down,
personal relationship or a business relationship, and driving a wedge in there is not serving anyone on either side.
100%, 100%, Christy.
One thing that I wanted to definitely get into with you is the sales psychology, because it's something I know that you're passionate about and that you have a lot of experience in. So, give me a high level of how you got into this, what your favorite things about it are, and then I'll take it from there.
Yeah. So, how I got into sales psychology was before I even entered the finance world, I was the head coach of women's club soccer at Cal State University of Northridge in California. So, I spent
Cool.
5 years there coaching the women's soccer team. And a short story, my first week there, I walked in and my ego must have pretended like I was a professional sports English Premier League head coach, like very aggressive, very loud and fiery. And I'll tell you, I could tell the first week, they hated me. They wanted me out. And so that was kind of the biggest lesson for me, sales aside, at just man management and having that understanding that psychology and personalities and your approach to each of those different personalities is so, so key. And so that was kind of the driving force that really got me into sales psychology because there was like an understanding that it can't be a one size fits all. So now you fast forward into I am working in the finance world. I am overseeing a sales team both inside of the United States and outside. And I really wanted to take that kind of same lesson learning that occurred on the soccer field with my approach and into how I lead the team, and then taking it a step further and how they communicate with prospects. There's that, what is it, KYC, know your customer, and the due diligence before a call, doing a quick scan like on somebody's LinkedIn, getting an understanding, and certainly like in a video message, you can pick up on nonverbal cues or verbal cues to help you adjust your approach so that ultimately you're trying to like build some synergy with the person that you're talking to. And so all things kind of combined is really what kind of catapulted me into falling in love with sales psychology. And I'm sure we'll get in. There's a handful of books live on my shelf. I pull them down repeat after repeat just to kind of refresh and remind myself of some of these things and tactics that I know were working so well.
I love that you return back to them time and again because if they provided value once, they're going to provide value again. Our brains don't work in a way where we retain everything that we've taken in. Plus, I have found once I have put something into practice and then I'm able to analyze it in a different way when I read something again or go over some learnings again and say, I didn't quite implement that just right, or I
Yeah.
could try it in this way.
Because a lot of these books, it's not like a finance only type of book. It's like a Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference, the Challenger Sale, the Seven Habits of Health. Like there's so many that apply to so many different verticals, even outside of sales and different industries. It just I'm a big like self growth, trying to learn something new every day. And so they're just such key fundamentals of, really achieving some of those targets you set for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I know that many of the people listening will be interested in that too. Who doesn't want to grow? And especially in this industry where I feel like things are changing on a daily basis, we need to be sharp and on top of our game.
Yes. No, absolutely.
So, quick question for you. You talked about the importance of building relationships with the people that you're selling to or that you're working with ultimately, like you get a contract, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So, what do you do when you're meeting someone for the first time? How do you get to understand them a little bit more so that you can move forward in the sales process in a way that will work best for them?
So I mean, I think it starts even before you meet them for the first time, it starts on the prospecting side. Like, how did you generate that interest to begin with? We're living in a world with AI and so much evolution with technology that, anybody who could be a decision maker is just met with so many of those like spray and pray emails. Like
True.
somebody will send 5,000 emails, nothing really specific. It's just a template, and you're not really getting any response from that type of approach. And so I think that the real relationship building drums into how you're identifying your ICP and then really digging into the research and understanding that the best opportunities is going to be a little bit timely. Like, I'll tell you, I just signed a deal with somebody who I've been in communication with for 2 years. And I didn't even try to sell them or pitch them for at least the first 6 months. It was just
Okay.
interacting on, a LinkedIn or sending emails back and forth or like trying to identify what type of value can I add for you without asking for anything in return. And so if that's kind of the foundation of now this first real meeting appointment where we get to talk discovery and the real business, a lot of the bedrock of that relationship growth has already kind of been laid. And so now when you're in that particular moment is you want to be able to meet them at their personality levels. There's some suit and ties that are, hey, cut the fluff, don't ask me how you are, let's just jump into it, have your analytics ready. And so you do. But then there
Yeah.
are others that there's like the right brain, left brain type, where some are more emotional reactive, some are more statistical reactive. And so there's some people that are, hey, Chris, how's it going? Where are you located again? And so if they want to dive into like, oh, the weather's great. I have a dog. I'm a girl dad. You definitely just got to meet them on the page so that that reciprocity in terms of approach and building that synergy is evident across the board.
Mhm. And again, I think it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, meeting them where they are
Yeah,
instead of forcing them to be where you are.
no, for sure.
And I think that takes skill and it takes being able to read the room, so to speak. And
Mhm.
so, how do you train your salespeople to do similar things? Because I think it doesn't always come naturally.
Yeah, such a great question. And so, how I'm training my sales guys right now, I am utilizing AI technology. So, we
Oh,
use a platform called Call Simulator, right? And so, what we're able to do is punch in certain scenarios into an AI guided model where it sounds like you're talking to a real person, and
mhm.
we just rinse and repeat. These guys, you can mess up as many times as possible because you're
That's
talking to
nice.
a robot, but then eventually you get this like, whoa, this I like the way that I phrase that, or I'm really starting to develop some momentum. And it's fun. I will use the call simulator and I will say, I will put in a prompt like, look, I'm trying to get your business right now. My objective is to schedule a meeting with you. I do not want you to take the meeting with me. I want you to give me every single objection that you could think of. And I'll have my reps and myself run through that model because, I mean, eventually you start laughing because you're, dude, I can't think of any more ways to tee out an opportunity, but it trains you for that in the moment. Like, you know what? I'm not free right now. Oh, look, Christy, I totally understand. I'm calling you out of the blue. And so, really what I'd like to do is just find a time that maybe it makes sense for you to continue the conversation. And once you're hit with every single type of objection that you could think of, even the most ridiculous ones, all of a sudden, when you're live in action and it's occurring in real time, you just feel so much more prepared because chances are you've provided a response to that objection before, and you know the way that you want to phrase it to be able to bridge that window to make the opportunity happen.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I like that you have the option of customizing it to what your specific learning needs are, because we're all different. And I am one of those people that will get shut down with an objection that I haven't heard before, right? So it's like, ah, dang, how do you handle that? So that sounds really cool. And for your new people, especially who might not be as well versed in the products, services, options, this gives them that opportunity to learn in a non-intimidating way, right? Because
Right.
it's so scary when you've got money, relationships, anything like that on the line.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, it's not just for like the sales side of it, is for,
Yeah.
let's say we've got a new agent that is one of, say, my debt collectors. There's
Okay.
a ton of regulations and FDCPA and things that are just critical for us to remain compliant. And so maybe the prompt is, hey, I want you to challenge or ask as many questions about the debt collection industry as possible, almost like making it an interview with this AI agent where you've got, and it doesn't even sound like a robotic voice. It's, and you can pick accents
Really?
as well. You've got
Yeah. Oh,
somebody in England asking you like, so how many contact attempts can you make in 7 days? And so it's just such an awesome training module for to avoid that. Let's just throw you into the fire and see how you do. So yeah, definitely one of the tactics we use when we're working on training across the board, all departments.
yeah, that sounds amazing. So, do you come across when we're talking about sales psychology, and there is a stigma definitely when it comes to sales. A lot of people who maybe aren't in sales or sales adjacent often use the comparison of car salesmen, which I think they get a better at, right? That may be a genuine thing to
The
feel,
word.
but how do you overcome that, or what are your thoughts on it when looking to connect with people and sell to them using the sales psychology model?
For that approach, I'd take it straight from this book, Never Split the Difference, that honestly has changed my life in the sales world in terms of how I communicate with, changed my life and how I communicate with my daughters. So it's a book that's written by a former FBI investigator. His name is Chris Voss. And the book is kind of like business negotiation. And so he's taking some of the lessons that he learned in like high critical emergency like hostage negotiations and going, look, we were able to disarm the hostage or get the hostage to be released safely because we were using these mental cues. And so a few of them are for all salespeople. Most of us are talkers. I know I'm a talker, but man, focus on listening. The more that you are an active listener and the less that you're talking, your prospect is going to open up more. We use a psychological trait called mirroring to get people to open up more. If I were to say, "Hey, Christy, are you having a great day?" and you said, "Yeah, I'm having an okay day," maybe I'll lean in and lower my tone or inflection and say, "You're having an okay day." I just mirrored what you said, but because of that transaction, now you might feel more compelled or confident to go, yeah, you know what, Chris? It's just okay because XYZ is happening. And so that's definitely how we're incorporating some of those psychological traits into how we communicate with ourselves, our family, even our coworker.
Yeah. When you shared that example, I can definitely see, oh, yeah, I would respond to him. I would tell him because I feel a sense of care. Like it's not just about the sale, it's about, hey, let's make sure that everything's good here. Or, and I think this is just me, but I feel like you can't really do that without having some level of care within you anyway, right? It's really
100%.
hard to fake that.
100%. And going back to the car salesman. So, like, look, a lot of them, sorry, car salesmen, a lot of them are sleazy and they're just in it for the money. There's a lot of great ones. In fact, I just bought a truck and it was from a great guy. And so, my takeaway in reference to that question concerning the car salesman is um, if my solution doesn't seem like it's an option for you, or if I've done the math and I'm looking at your portfolio and just the XYZ of whatever we're looking at, I'm not going to sell you something if I don't think it's going to work. And I think that that should be like, again, the foundation of every salesperson's approach is I'm not just here to ramp up my KPIs or hit this dollar number target. I'm here to like actually provide a solution that I know is going to work out for you. And if you carry that kind of genuine and look, I just want to help you. I really think it helps you get to the finish line because there have been tons of times where I've been in a conversation with a prospect and I'm like, man, if I win this, boom, I just hit my quarterly goal. We're in it to win it. But then they drop that trigger detail about their portfolio, whether it has to do with age, whether it has to do with like the supportive collateral that they can provide. And if I know that what my service does isn't going to work, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to pump the brakes. And I think that that is something that's missing in the car sales world, as well as just like the fintech, the sales world in general as well. Like we got to be good to people and our intentions have to be to actually resolve problems that they have.
Yeah, I feel like that high pressure situation isn't beneficial to anybody
No,
other than the
definitely
bottom
not.
line of the company, you know?
Right.
And even then, it ruins your reputation in the long run if you're selling something that isn't going to be worthwhile to the
Yeah.
buyer.
No, it really does because those reviews on like a Yelp or a Google or any of those type of verticals, a BBB, that's a currency. It's either a really good currency for you or those negative comments that people are leaving because you sold them on just a pile of hopes and wishes. It becomes a really negative currency for you. And so I think you make a brilliant point is that reputation at the end is key. And it's how you're able to scale and continue to grow because now you've got this Rolodex of people that trust and are along with you for the ride because the service actually does help and it gives them benefit.
Right. So there is something that you and I talked about, some of the tips and tricks that you have when it comes to sales psychology.
I live on those tips and tricks. So what I train my agents is when it comes to trying to schedule the next appointment, I try to keep their mindset at, hey, my time is just as important as this person's time. So instead of like, hey, Christy, anytime next week, you just tell me what works best. Sometimes that triggers a little bit of sales resistance, right? And so what I would tell them is pop open your fake calendar. It could be completely empty. And I would say, hey, Christy, you know what? On Thursday this week, I just had somebody drop out. I've got about an hour, maybe 45-minute open slot. Can I punch you into that slot? Or equally next week, but it might be towards the tail end of the week. Now, mind you, my calendar could be completely blank, but
Sure. Yeah.
painting that impression of importance and it's like automatically I feel less needy going, Christy, please, any day, Tuesday, you want me to meet you during dinner time, whatever you want. It helps drive the deal along. My other favorite one, and this one stems from Jeremy Minor, the Neuro Emotional Persuasion Questions, the NEPQ book, which I think is fascinating, is he says, don't say the F word. And I agree so hard. The F word triggers the most sales resistance of anybody because, again, that's all they're getting in their inboxes. Hey, Christy, it's John. Just following up, just checking in, just seeing. So, for those of you guys listening, the F word is don't say follow up. Do not say follow up. It's revert to like almost that first tip. If I'm reaching out to Christy and she's kind of been ghosting me, maybe I would say, hey, Christy, somebody just dropped out. I got one free opening. Or I would be kind but blunt in my messages. Hey, Christy, I've sent you 4 emails and left 2 voice messages, and I haven't received a response. Where do we go from here? Like some of those more poignant and direct kind of responses in your follow up are really going to incentivize re engagement because when they see that follow up, it just goes, oh, that's a sales guy. I can get to it whenever I want because he's just going to keep following up. And so we're trying to break the barrier on that type of ghosted methodology of getting them back in the line.
And I can't tell you how many times I have both written and read the word follow-up. So
Me too.
I get
I'm
it.
so guilty of it. I'm so guilty of it.
And it makes sense, right? when especially I look at it as a softball. I'm just pitching a quick softball over to someone, see if they'll take it. And if you are soft like that, it allows them to be soft back
No,
rather
definitely.
than, like you said, being bold and asking for something. Are they interested? Are
Yeah.
they not? You're asking very directly and they have to respond.
No, for
Or
sure.
if they don't, their lack of response says something as well.
This one doesn't always elicit the best response, but sometimes we talk about the goodbye or the takeaway email or message that you leave, and it's just a one-liner. Hey, Christy, have you given up on this project? Boom,
Yes.
send. Wow. And so I've gotten re-engagement, but I've had to like soften some of the aggression that that email could elicit to some people. Like, are you
And maybe
accusing me
knowing
of
your audience.
giving up? Like, no, I'm
Yeah.
not, but I wanted you to respond and you did. So now let's keep going.
Yeah. And I'm sure based on the things that you talked about earlier with knowing your audience that you know who you can and who you can't say
Yeah.
that.
You don't fire that one off to everybody for sure. That's a
Yeah.
good point.
But some people, like you said, the ones that are buttoned up, the ones who just want the numbers, the ones who are ready to just dive into business and skip the fluff. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's just get straight to the point.
No, for sure. For sure. And again, it just goes into for any salesperson, I'll tell you right now, your time is valuable. And the moment that you harness that and you stop forgetting about it, you're going to become a better sales warrior because all of your approaches, all of your ambitions of re-engagement or performing a discovery call are you're the expert, man. If they were interested, they're interested in you because you're the expert. And so consider yourself an expert and stop letting them just walk all over you with some of their questions and their drag, you know?
Which is a detour from a lot of the things that people have been taught in sales for a long time. And,
Yeah.
even customer service. I remember one of my earliest jobs. You were not allowed to, I mean, talk back isn't the right word, but you weren't allowed to call them out on bad behavior or speaking to you badly or poorly. And I remember when that slowly started to change. I'm like, you'll let me tell them I won't allow this abuse? That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
So just these changing psychologies over the years and the decades, it's been really interesting to watch.
Was just gonna say that it's that old adage, the customer is always right, which I think is we're further from it than we were previously. And I mean, like, look, I used to work in the restaurant industry, and for any of the youth listening, if you want to get into customer support or you want to get into sales, man, I would recommend working in a restaurant because you're going to
Yeah,
see every type of personality. It's like it's just one meal. There's no way that this
right.
ruined your life, but they're going to make you think that because you put broccoli instead of asparagus, that this just ruined their life. And so it's such a tremendous type of mental exercise and growth at how you communicate with people so that you're primed for meeting some of those different personalities that you're going to come across.
One other thing that I wanted to pick your brain about is AI workflows and efficiencies. I know it's something that you have some good experience in, and fintech is a unique environment for this because we do have so many regulations, compliance with that personal information that we are custodians of,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, big time. So, big question always. AI right now, in my opinion, and I was meeting with somebody a couple weeks ago, and he used the expression, with AI, we should always be taking one step forward, two steps back. What do I mean by that? Is right now, particularly in the fintech world, in the financial services industry, we've got capabilities to use AI to manipulate and gather really sensitive information on behalf of consumers. And I don't think that that is the appropriate thing to do. What I'm doing is I'm leaning into the use of AI to develop just rock solid workflows and feeding in like association websites or new regulatory dialogues so that my machine learning model can strengthen using those regulatory and compliance kind of criterias. It's funny, in the United States right now, with the evolution of AI, there are zero regulations, which is bonkers. I think that, like, give it 6 months, at the most a year, there's going to be some tremendous regulations about how AI is utilized. But I mean, I think we should almost take a page out of The only AI regulation right now is in the European Union. It's called the Act. And
Right.
similarly to that, try not to use AI to scalp or fetch sensitive information on behalf of individuals or companies or consumers. That's really the bedrock over in the European Union for
Hmm.
really placing a hard stop at saying, look, you cannot do that. I mean, I've heard there's already softwares right now, especially in my world, we deal with something called propensity to pay models, which is just a really fancy word for how likely is Christie to pay off this debt.
Right.
So right now, how they're using AI, it's not released yet. It's still just kind of in development. But let's say that you have a smartwatch, right? And it tracks your heart rate, how well you slept last night, what your geographic is. You were moving a lot yesterday, or if you're moving a lot today. And imagine if somebody had access to that data, particularly like a debt collector, to be able to determine they're looking at these propensity models and going, you know what, Christy, terrible sleep last night. I'm probably not going to shoot her a call today because she might be a little bit moody. Or in comparison, man, Christie's heart rate is on point. Looks like she got more than 8 hours of sleep last night. I might call her twice. I might do a morning and an afternoon call. And like, so it sounds good from a strategy point of view, just because
Right.
I love using data to determine what I should do. But that's like a massive overstep
Like
in
from
of
personal
boundaries.
side.
No, exactly. And so I'm looking forward to some of these AI regulations just so that wild concepts like that, which is it's fun to talk about. It's fun to hear that, whoa, we've gotten that far. But in a practicality world, no way, man. I don't want to use a model like that just because I know that that's gross, dude. There's a better way for us to be able to engage with people rather than like infiltrating some of their sensitive information and data.
It's a little predatory, and we need to feel at least that there's some level of protection of something private in our lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get that. From a sales perspective, it's like, oh, I can know all those details, but yeah, you've got to respect the individual as well when it
No,
comes
for
to all
sure.
of
Well, I
that.
mean, it's even like everybody's got the smartphone, and you could be
Yeah.
talking to your best friend or your spouse, and they're like, "Hey, did you see that new rug on Temu?" And you didn't click a link, you
Mhm.
didn't anything, but you go into the other room, you bust out your phone, you're on the socials, and what's the first thing that pops up is several different rugs on
Yeah.
Temu. And so that's like a weaker version of how sensitive information could be shared. And it's just like they're all data points that are put into the data sphere of millions and trillions of points. And so we just got to be careful about the way that some of that data is used because it can get ugly.
Especially in the fintech world
Yeah,
where there is so much that can be lost, right? Both personally and company wide if things are leaked, if things are compromised.
100% agree. Yeah. And you use such a good word. It is predatory. That's what it is. When you're scalping that type of data, it's aggressive and it's predatory. And look, man, especially in debt collection, we got a bad rap already from what the 90s and even beforehand showed
Yeah.
from our industry. And so, yeah, one step forward, two steps back before, we really dive in deep to how we're utilizing that type of technology.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I kind of compare it to things like crypto, where there was no regulation in the early
Yeah.
days, and they do have some ground to gain on reputation in a lot of
Hmm.
ways, especially here in the US. And so I do feel like regulation can be a bit of a downer. People don't love talking about it or the
Right,
fact that it's
right.
even there, but it really is here to help us.
No, for sure, for sure. And that, I mean, like, there's still so many regulations that need to be imposed with crypto. Like, I'm personally, we're not collecting on Bitcoin or anything like that. There's
Mm-mm.
got to be some tangible FDIC substance where it's a verifiable figure before I'm trying to collect upon that paper, just because it's too new. The landscape is so different. One day it's 100,000, the next day it's down to 4,000. Like, that module of nothing fixed really needs to be looked at, especially from a regulatory standpoint, before we start imposing consequences upon it.
Yeah. And it's interesting how long it's been around and that we still have so much ground to
Yeah,
make on it.
no, definitely, definitely agree. And if I could just leave everybody with one thing, is that going back to debt collection is, look, man, it happens to everybody. And whether you're a creditor that has delinquent owing balances, be flexible with those guys that have to pay you. That's the best thing you could do. And for people that are in debt, even if you can't pay it off, just communicate. Don't ghost anybody. The more that you're communicating with people, the less consequences, most of the time, zero consequences will be
Right.
imposed upon you because you're talking. But it's the moment that you leave the face of the earth that we can only assume the worst. And that's when some of those, like, oh man, your credit reporting, oh man, you're trying to seek a judgment. That's when some of those crazy Hollywood type of consequences occur. So that's what I'll
I,
leave us with.
I like that term, Hollywood consequences. That's what we all
Yeah.
envision, right? It's kind of scary.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Liens on your house, garnishment of wages, they're taking my vehicle. Like, we want to avoid that. Yeah, we want to avoid that.
Thanks for joining us, Chris. As promised, here is a list of the books that Chris recommended earlier in our podcast. Thanks for watching our podcast today. I'm Kristen Nielsen. I'm the owner of Copper Canvas Ads Agency, and we partner with fintechs to help them scale their business within a 12-month period. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I've seen how saturated the market can be, and therefore how difficult it can be to make your business stand out in a sea of other fintechs that may look similar or maybe even slightly different. But how do you make yours stand out? How do you get your message to the right people and those with high buying intent? That's what Copper Canvas Ads Agency is here to do. We are a growth partner, and we take a deep dive into your business to really understand what your strong points are, where there may be areas of weakness, and how we can fill those areas of weakness and create a plan to move forward in a strong way and really scale. So if you are interested, simply go to our website, coppercanvasadsagency.com, and schedule a time. There are buttons right there on the front page for you to book a time, and then we'll love to talk to you and see what we're able to do together.